The silent grief the forest was quiet. Cold wind moved between the dead trees. The sky was dark, and the moons gave little light. On the edge of a forgotten planet, a woman knelt beside a small grave. She did not speak. She only stared at the soil, her hands resting on the ground as if trying to feel life beneath it. Her name was Kelra. Her skin had a faint blue glow, and her hair shimmered like silver threads. She wore no armor, no weapons, only a long dark robe covered in dust and tears. Her face was tired. She had not slept in days. Maybe weeks. Every night she returned to the same place. The grave was not marked with a name. Only a tiny toy rested. On top of the mound, a soft cloth doll with one eye missing. She placed it there the night the escape pod crashed. The soldiers told her the pod was too damaged. The fire was too strong. No one could survive, they said. They gave her ashes. But her heart never believed it. Still, she buried them. Still, she cried. A sound broke the silence, a bird's cry far away. Kelra looked up. Her eyes glowed softly with tears. She whispered something in her language. It was a lullaby, the kind she used to sing while rocking her child in the old village before the war came. She closed her eyes and remembered. The sky had been red that day. The alarms screamed as ships fell from orbit. The village burned. She ran with her baby, wrapped tight in blankets, to the last pod. Soldiers shouted. One helped her inside but stopped her. Only one life left, he said. She froze. Her child looked up at her with wide, trusting eyes. Kelra kissed her baby's forehead, wrapped her tighter, and placed her inside. Then she slammed the pod door shut. The fire followed. The blast shook the ground. The pod flew into the sky, but only for seconds before it was hit and came crashing down. She chased it, limping and screaming. She found it burning. She tried to open it, but the heat pushed her back. Then soldiers pulled her away. It's over, they said. It's too late. Kelra never saw her baby again. She stayed behind. When the army left the planet, she built a small shelter in the woods. She planted flowers around the grave. Every morning she searched for the crash site again, hoping she missed something. But there was only broken metal and ashes. She buried them with her own hands. Tonight was no different. She sat by the grave as wind picked up dust and leaves. She whispered again, I'm sorry. I should have held you. I should have stayed. I should have burned with you. She didn't know that someone else had been near the crash that night, that far. Away, in a quiet part of the forest, a human man looked out the window of a small wooden shack built against a cave wall. He stirred a pot of soup over a fire. Behind him, a small alien child played with wooden blocks. Her eyes glowed like Kelra's. Her skin was the same soft blue. She hummed the same lullaby. Time to eat, the man said. His name was Daniel. He was an ex-pilot who crashed on this planet years ago. He had no home to return to, no one waiting for him. But the day he found the child inside the broken escape pod, everything changed. He had seen the fire from a distance and rushed in before the flames reached the center. He opened the pod, expecting to find a body, but instead found a tiny baby, breathing and quiet. He pulled her out and ran. He heard voices coming, soldiers maybe, and hid in the trees until they were gone. He never told anyone. He didn't know where the child came from. But he saw something in her eyes, something too pure to leave behind. Now she called him Papa. Back in the forest, Kelra stood and touched the doll one last time before walking away. Her feet dragged through the dirt, her back hunched from sorrow. She didn't know that her baby was alive. She didn't know the man who saved her was still on this planet. And she didn't know that soon their paths would meet and change everything. Daniel woke early, just before the twin suns rose. Moved quietly, not wanting to wake the child. The forest outside was still dark, but the sky had started turning purple. The birds had not begun singing yet. It was the safest time to go out for food, for wood, and sometimes for answers he never found. He stepped outside, pulling on a ragged coat made from old pilot gear. His boots crunched over the frost-covered ground. The small house he built was half camouflaged with vines and metal scrap. Behind it, a large cave went deep into the mountain. That's where they hid when things got dangerous. Inside, Niley slept peacefully, holding a worn-out blanket to her chest. The blanket had alien symbols sewn into it. Daniel didn't understand the language, but he never threw it away. It was the only clue to who she truly was. He remembered the night he found her. The pot had been twisted metal, still glowing from heat. He had broken it open with a crowbar, expecting death. But instead, he saw her tiny, silent eyes wide open, but not crying. She reached for his face, like she trusted him. Like she knew he was not the enemy. From that moment, he became something he never expected to be her protector. He hunted small creatures and collected roots. He read old manuals at night to teach her how to speak. Her first word was Papa. He had never cried before that day, not even during war. But that word broke him. Today, though, he felt something strange. Like someone had entered the forest. A sound? A shift in the wind? He wasn't sure. His instincts, built from years of surviving in the wild, whispered that something had changed. He climbed a rocky path to check the solar panels hidden under branches. As he wiped frost from the metal, he noticed boot prints in the dirt. Not his, not recent, but fresh enough. His hand moved to the knife at his belt. Meanwhile, Neely woke up. She rubbed her eyes and walked barefoot to the door. "Papa?" She called softly. Daniel turned fast, eyes wide, then relaxed. "I told you to wait inside, little star," he said gently. She pointed to the trees. "I heard singing last night," she said. "It was like a sad song." Daniel blinked. "A song?" Niley nodded. "It made me cry." Daniel said nothing, but his stomach twisted. That night, he had also heard something, faint, like humming. He thought it was the wind, but maybe it was more. After breakfast, Daniel sat with Niley outside. She drew shapes in the dirt with a stick. "Why am I different?" she asked suddenly. "Why don't I look like you?" He stopped moving. The question had come before, but this time it sounded heavier. "You're special," he said slowly. "You came from the stars. You're stronger, smarter, your people are beautiful. But you're my papa. Am I still human too?" Daniel smiled weakly. "You're both. You're mine." But Neely didn't smile back this time. She looked away, eyes sad. In another part of the forest, Calra walked past sharp rocks and twisted roots. Her boots were cracked, her robe torn. She was hungry, but she followed her ears. Last night, she had sung to the grave as always, but this time, she thought she heard something in return. A faint echo. Not her voice, a child's voice. She couldn't be sure. Maybe her mind was breaking, but her heart told her, go. Search again. She reached the crash site. Again. She had visited it 100 times. This time she sat still and looked deeper. The burnt trees, the blast radius. But one thing felt wrong. The escape hatch was open. No one ever told her that. She touched the edge of the wreck, burned long ago. Then she saw it, a small imprint in the dirt, tiny, like a baby's foot. Far older than fresh, but still there, preserved under a piece of metal that had only recently shifted. Her heart stopped. She began to tremble. Far away, Daniel packed supplies. He felt something, a fear growing in his chest. He didn't know why. But he picked up Niley and carried her into the cave. "We'll stay inside tonight," he said. "Why?" she asked. "Just in case. Is someone coming?" Daniel looked at the trees, then at the sky, then back at her. "I don't know," he whispered. "But I think someone's already here." Kelra moved like a shadow through the thick forest. Her boots crushed leaves that hadn't felt life in years. Her hands shook, but her eyes were sharp. She had seen the baby's footprint near the old wreck. That one small sign changed everything. She had spent so long believing her child was dead. Now something deep inside whispered hope. Still, her mind argued with her heart. Could that footprint really belong to her child? Could it have survived the crash? Or was it a dream her grief created? She moved faster, holding onto that hope dot above her. Old drones floated between the trees, silent machines from an old war, still scanning. Kalra had learned how to avoid them. She knew where they turned, how long they hovered, and which ones were blind. Her people had survived by knowing how to vanish. She was good at it, but someone else in the forest was even better. Daniel watched from high above, his body hidden in tree branches, covered in leaves and netting. He had followed the signs. He saw broken twigs, tracks too clean to be an animal, and the faint trail of disturbed moss. Someone was in his forest. And that someone wasn't a scavenger. She moved with purpose. No gun, no gear, but still alert. She wasn't hunting for salvage, she was searching. Her every step screamed pain and longing. Daniel didn't know who she was, but she was alien, that much was clear, and Neely was alien too. His heart pounded. As he dropped silently to the ground, he returned to the cave. He had to check on Neely. She was fine sitting by the fire, holding her blanket, whispering to herself. She did that sometimes. Spoke to the stars, or to voices Daniel couldn't hear. She looked up. "She's close, Papa." Daniel paused. "Who's close?" "The singing woman," Neely said. "I feel her." Daniel knelt down, his face serious. "What do you mean you feel her?" Neely placed her tiny glowing hand on her chest. "Here, like something inside me is reaching out." Daniel didn't like the sound of that, but he didn't tell her. He simply nodded, kissed her forehead, and stood up. "Stay here. Hide if you hear anything. You remember the whistle?" She nodded. He stepped outside, this time holding his old weapon, a long rifle patched with spare parts. He hated using it, but something was coming. He needed to be ready. Back in the trees, Kalra stopped. The wind carried something. A smell. Smoke. Not forest smoke, cooking smoke. Someone was living here. She moved carefully toward it, weaving between rocks and thick trunks, stopping every few feet to listen. She crouched behind a boulder and peeked through. Her eyes widened. There it was, a small home made of stone, wood, and metal, nearly hidden. Pipes ran into a nearby cave. Solar panels peeked out from branches. A small wooden doll hung near the door. And there, just for a moment, she saw movement inside. A shadow. She stepped back, heart racing. This was no scavenger camp. This was something personal. Someone had lived here a long time. Someone who didn't want to be found. She waited until night fell. Daniel also waited. He sat outside, watching the trees. The rifle lay beside him. His fingers never left the grip. Hours passed. Then he saw her. She didn't approach directly. She moved sideways, almost like she floated. Her robe brushed the grass. Her silver hair caught moonlight. Her glowing skin lit up the night. She stepped into view and stopped. They both stared at each other. No one spoke. Then she whispered, "Is there a child here?" Daniel didn't answer. His body didn't move. Kalra stepped forward. "I don't want harm. I'm not here to steal. I've just lost something, long ago. My baby. I buried her in the dirt. But now, I think maybe I buried nothing. Please," her voice cracked. Daniel still didn't move. Then behind him, the softest sound broke the silence. "Papa?" Kalra's eyes widened. That voice. That tone. She tried to look past Daniel, but he stepped in the way. "She's safe," he said. His voice was calm but firm. "She doesn't know who you are." Kalra's breath caught. "Then let me show you who I am." "No," Daniel said. Kalra's eyes filled with tears. "Why?" Daniel looked down. "Because she calls me Papa. and I don't know if I can let her go." The wind grew stronger. Between them. For a moment, neither knew what to say. Inside the house, Nayli stood at the window. She didn't understand everything, but she felt something warm pulling her outside, something calling from deep inside her blood. She touched her chest and whispered, "Mama?" Nayli pressed her tiny hand against the wooden wall and felt her heart beat faster. She didn't know why, but the woman outside made her feel something strange. Not fear, something warmer, like sunlight after rain. It wasn't a memory. It was something deeper. She didn't understand it, but she wanted to. Outside, Kelra still stood facing Daniel, breathing hard. She could barely hold back the tears. Her voice shook as she spoke. "She's mine," she whispered. "I carried her inside me. I held her in my arms. I sent her away to save her. I thought she died." Daniel didn't lower the rifle. His jaw was tight. "And I found her, in fire and smoke. I raised her. I protected her. I taught her to speak, to laugh, to sing." Kelra stepped closer. "Then you know she still sings the lullaby." Daniel's breath caught for just a second. That one small pause told Kelra everything. Her voice softened. "She remembers me. Even now." But before Daniel could answer, a sharp sound broke the moment. "Bzzzzzzz. Bzzzzzzd. Kale." Ray turned fast. Her eyes scanned the dark forest behind her. She crouched, her hand instinctively going to her belt, but there was no weapon. There. Daniel cursed under his breath. "Drones," he said. "They found us." Kelra's eyes widened. "They followed me?" "No," Daniel replied, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the house. "They found me, or maybe her." Above the trees, a small group of black surveillance drones hovered silently, their red lights blinking. From far above, they looked like stars, but they were much more dangerous. Each carried scanners, weapons, and worst of all, recording transmitters. Kelra ran behind Daniel into the cave entrance connected to the house. Nayli rushed into Daniel's arms as soon as he entered. She was scared but quiet. Daniel knelt beside her. "Stay with me. Don't make a sound. We're going into the tunnel." Kelra grabbed a torch and lit the path ahead. "You built a tunnel?" "I didn't build it," Daniel answered. "It was already here. I just made it livable." They walked quickly into the deep stone passage. The walls were covered in moss, and drops of water echoed in the darkness. After a few minutes, they reached a wide chamber with a metal door. Daniel opened it and locked it behind them. It was an old mining room, left over from a forgotten age. Safe. For now. Kelra sat down on a broken crate, catching her breath. "Who sent the drones?" "I don't know," Daniel said. "They started appearing a few weeks ago. Maybe scavengers. Maybe someone who finally picked up her signal." Kelra looked down at Nayli. "Her signal?" Daniel nodded. "Her skin glows. Her blood isn't like ours. She's not just alien. She's rare. People would pay to own her." Kelra's hands tightened into fists. "No one will touch her." "I know," Daniel said. "That's why we keep running." Nayli stood between them, looking at both faces. "Are you fighting?" she asked. Softly. "No," Kelra said, kneeling in front of her. "I'm just sad, because I missed you." Nayli tilted her head. "Do I know you?" Kelra placed her hand gently on Nayli's chest. "You knew me before you could remember. I was your first home. I sang to you before you had a name." Daniel looked away, emotion building in his throat. He had feared this moment. That Nayli would ask questions he couldn't answer. That someone would come and claim her. That he might lose her. Suddenly, the radio near the cave entrance crackled. A robotic voice said, "Target location locked. Repeat. Target located. Preparing. Capture team." Daniel jumped up. "They've got our coordinates." Kelra stood ready. "Then we fight." Daniel looked at her. "You know how to use a weapon?" Kelra gave a bitter smile. I was trained to protect my people before the war. I never wanted to kill, but I will die before I let them take her. He nodded. Together, they moved to a back chamber, where Daniel kept a hidden stash of old tech, an energy pistol, 2 grenades, and a cloaking cloth. Kelra took the pistol. How many are coming? Daniel loaded his rifle. I don't know. But they don't care who dies, as long as they get her. Kelra looked down the dark tunnel. Then they're going to be very disappointed. In the middle of the old mining cave, Niley sat quietly on the stone floor. She didn't cry. She didn't hide. Instead, she began humming the lullaby again, the same one her mother once sang while holding her against her chest. And somewhere beyond the trees, 6 mercenaries dropped from a low-flying stealth ship, heavily armed. Faces covered. Orders clear. Take the child. Leave no survivors. The forest burned with silence. Not flames, but the kind of stillness that felt like danger hiding behind every tree. 6 mercenaries moved like shadows, their boots silent on the ground, their faces covered by black helmets with red lenses. Each of them carried high-tech weapons designed for quick kills. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their orders were simple. Locate the child. Eliminate everyone else. Deep inside the mountain, Kelra tightened the strap on her borrowed weapon. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear but rage. She had already buried her child once. She would not do it again. Daniel paced beside her, checking the charge on his rifle. He looked at her and asked, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Kelra didn't answer right away. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then she said, "When I believed she was gone, I wanted to stop breathing. I gave up on myself, but now I have something to fight for, someone." Daniel nodded once. "Good, because we may not get another chance." Nayli sat nearby, quiet but alert. She watched her 2 protectors move with serious faces. She wasn't crying. She wasn't scared. But she held tightly onto the old cloth doll Daniel gave her years ago, soft and worn, with one button eye. It had always made her feel safe. Now it felt like a shield. Suddenly, boom, a loud sound echoed from outside. Dust fell from the cave. Walls. A shockwave rolled through the tunnels. "They're here," Daniel said. Kelra moved to the side tunnel, pressing herself against the wall. "We have to separate them. If they come together, we won't stand a chance." Daniel nodded. "I'll draw them away. You protect Niley." "No," Kelra replied. "We do this together." Daniel wanted to argue, but he stopped. There was no time and no point. She wasn't going to leave her child again. Meanwhile, in the trees above, one of the mercenaries used a scanner to locate the cave entrance. A blinking signal pulsed on his wrist device. "Target confirmed," he whispered. He gave a hand signal, and the group spread out, surrounding the mountain like wolves. One by one, they entered the tunnels. The first mercenary walked quietly down the main passage. He moved past old mining carts and broken beams. His gun was ready. Then click. A small tripwire snapped, and a flash grenade exploded right beside him. The light blinded him instantly, and Kelra stepped from the shadows and fired once. The energy blast hit him square in the chest. He dropped without a sound. Daniel grabbed the weapon and passed it to Kelra. "You're better with this," he said. She didn't argue. The second mercenary heard the blast and rushed in. He turned a corner fast, but Daniel was waiting. One clean shot. "One more down. 2, Daniel whispered. But now the others knew. The rest of the team moved quickly, not caring about traps. They threw a sonic bomb into the tunnel. The blast rang through the cave, sharp and painful. Kelra screamed, falling to her knees, ears bleeding. Daniel covered Nayli, shielding her with his body. One of the mercs moved in fast. He aimed his weapon straight at Nayli, but Kelra rose, her face twisted in rage, and fired first. The shot burned through the attacker's armor. He dropped hard, smoke rising from his chest. She staggered toward Niley and grabbed her. "We have to run now." Daniel fired behind them, holding back the last two mercenaries. "Go, I'll meet you at the waterfall." Kelra didn't want to leave, but Niley pulled her hand. "He'll come back," the child whispered. "He always does." They ran deeper into the tunnel system, past old machinery and rusted pipes. Kelra's legs were weak, but she didn't stop. Not this time. Not ever again. They reached a narrow exit that opened behind the mountain near a cliff. A cold waterfall roared nearby, crashing into a deep river. Mist filled the air. Kelra turned and saw Daniel burst from the cave behind them. He was limping, bleeding from his arm, but alive. Behind him, the last two mercs chased with fury in their steps. Daniel turned at the cliff's edge, raised his rifle and fired the last blast. Click. Empty. He threw the weapon aside and stepped forward with fists raised. But Kelra didn't let him fight alone. She screamed a sound full of fury and sorrow and joined him. Together they knocked one mercenary into the water. The last tried to run, but Niley, standing small and glowing in the mist, raised her hand. Her skin lit up like a star. The light burst outward in a wave of energy, strong and pure. It hit the last attacker like lightning. He collapsed unmoving. Silence returned. Kelra stared at her daughter. Daniel stared too. "What was that?" he asked. Niley looked at her glowing fingers, unsure. "I don't know," she said, "but it came from inside." Kelra dropped to her knees and held her daughter tightly. "My baby," she whispered. "I thought I lost you forever." Daniel watched them. A smile broke across his bruised face. For the first time, Kelra didn't feel broken. She felt whole. Asterisk. The waterfall's roar faded behind them as they moved deeper into the woods. Daniel's left arm was wrapped in cloth, still bleeding from the earlier fight. Kelra held Niley close, one arm around the child, the other gripping her weapon tightly. They didn't speak much. The silence was not peaceful, it was heavy. The kind of silence that warns you not to trust the quiet. The ground was wet. The air smelled like mud and smoke. Their boots left deep marks, but there was no time to cover their tracks. "They'll send more," Daniel said finally. His voice was tired. Mercenaries don't give up. Not when there's money involved. Kelra looked over her shoulder. "Do you think they know who she is?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, or they wouldn't risk this much. Someone out there knows what she's worth." Niley looked up at them both. "Am I dangerous?" she asked softly. Kelra stopped walking and knelt in front of her. "No, little star, you are not dangerous. But the world around us is, and it wants to use you." Niley didn't cry. She just nodded and held tighter to her old cloth doll. Daniel led them to an old communication tower deep in the forest, rusted, broken, but still standing. It had no power, but the base underneath had rooms. It was once used by old soldiers during the first wave of the war. Now it was nothing but empty walls and metal dust. They hid inside as night fell. Kelra cleaned Daniel's wound in silence. She used herbs from her satchel, one she had gathered long ago when she thought she would live alone forever. Daniel didn't flinch. He only watched Niley sleep in the corner, curled up in a blanket. "She's strong," he whispered. Kelra nodded. "She's more than strong. She's something new. Something this galaxy hasn't seen before." Daniel sighed. "That's what scares them." Kelra looked at him, her voice low. "You've done more for her than I ever could. You fed her, protected her, taught her. I gave birth. But you gave her life." Daniel shook his head. "You gave her life the day you placed her in that pod. You sacrificed everything." They both fell quiet again. Far above them, in the sky that looked peaceful but wasn't, a small stealth ship hovered. Inside, a masked woman with silver eyes watched. A red dot on her tracker blinked slowly. She moved again, the woman said. She's still with the human. A voice crackled through her comms. Do not engage. Keep tracking. The buyer is on his way. The silver-eyed woman smiled, understood. I'll let them run a little longer. The next morning, Daniel woke. Up early, the forest was foggy. He moved through the trees alone, scouting for signs, tracks, smell of fuel, broken branches. He was trained for it once, long ago, in another life. And now he was using all that knowledge for one reason, to keep her safe. When he returned, Kalra was teaching Niley how to listen to the ground. Your feet are part of the earth, she said gently. It will tell you if someone is coming. You just have to feel it. Niley smiled. Like magic? Kalra touched her forehead. No, like survival. Suddenly, Daniel raised his hand. Quiet. They froze. Then they heard it. A sound in the sky. A ship. Low. Fast. Hunting. Daniel grabbed his pack. We need to move. Now. They ran again through fog and thorns, across broken paths, through streams that washed away their scent. They didn't stop, not even when Niley stumbled. Daniel lifted her onto his back without a word and kept going. By midday, they reached a canyon, too wide to cross, too steep to climb down quickly. Daniel cursed under his breath. Kalra looked around and spotted something, a broken bridge, half buried in vines. She moved to it, pushed aside the growth, and found an old control panel. Think it still works? Daniel asked. Only one way to find out, she said. She opened the panel. The wires inside were dry and dusty, but not destroyed. She used a power cell from her belt and connected it. Sparks flew. A groan came from the bridge. It began to lower. Slowly. Painfully. But it moved. Then behind them, the sound of thrusters screamed. The stealth ship dropped from the sky right above the trees. Its side door opened, and 3 armed figures jumped out, landing fast, weapons ready. Daniel fired once, hitting one in the leg. Kalra pushed Niley onto the bridge. Run, don't stop. Niley ran. Daniel and Kalra turned to fight, but the silver-eyed woman landed between them. She didn't shoot. She smiled. You don't know what she is, the woman said. But I do, and soon the galaxy will too. Kalra aimed her weapon. You'll never take her, the woman laughed. I don't need to. I just need to outlive you. Then everything happened at once. Gunfire, smoke, screams, and through it all Niley ran across the bridge alone. Niley ran across the old bridge as fast as her legs could move. The wooden planks creaked under her feet, some breaking beneath her steps, but she didn't stop. She held her cloth doll tight to her chest. Behind her, gunfire echoed like thunder, and her name was being shouted through the smoke. Niley, keep going. Daniel's voice roared. She looked back only once and saw him fighting. His shirt was torn, his face bleeding. Kalra stood beside him, her silver hair wild in the wind, firing at enemies that kept coming like shadows from the sky. The bridge groaned. Again. Niley reached the other side. The moment her foot touched solid ground, the bridge shook hard. Sparks flew from its supports. One of the mercenaries had thrown a grenade onto the old frame. Kalra saw it. She had seconds. She turned to Daniel, grabbed his face with both hands, and said in a breath, Jump, I'll cover you. Daniel shook his head. No, we go together. But Kalra had already turned. She ran back toward the center of the bridge and fired one last blast into the sky. It hit the enemy's fuel tank and exploded. The fire raced behind. Her. Daniel dove across the last plank just as the bridge collapsed. Behind him, metal and fire falling into the canyon below. Kalra was gone. Smoke rose. Wind howled. Daniel lay still. For a moment, face buried in the dirt. Then a small hand touched his shoulder. He looked up and Niley was there, crying. But her tears glowed, and so did the air around her. Her body pulsed with light. Her skin shimmered like a star being born. The wind stilled. The ground beneath her feet hummed. Daniel pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I felt her," Niley said through tears. "She didn't want to go, but she made a choice. She gave me one last gift." Daniel didn't understand, but Niley did. That's when the ship came down from the sky again. The silver-eyed woman, the last enemy, stepped out of the smoke. She was alone now, her team gone. She clapped slowly, impressive. "I didn't expect you to survive." Daniel stood in front of Niley, arms wide. "You're not touching her." The woman didn't raise her weapon. She just smiled. "I already have what I need." She pointed to a small drone floating above. "It's been recording her. The light, the energy, the power. I'll sell the data, and they'll come in thousands. You can't hide her forever." Niley stepped forward before Daniel could stop her. The girl's eyes were glowing bright now, white-hot and full of something ancient. "Leave," she said softly. The woman tilted her head. "And if I don't?" Niley raised her hand. The ground shook. Trees bent. The drone burst into sparks, and the woman was gone. A flash of light, a gust of wind, and only ash remained. Daniel stood frozen. "Niley," she turned to him slowly, tears still on her cheeks. "I didn't want to hurt her," she said. "But she was going to bring more. I saw it." He knelt beside her, unsure what to say. "What are you, Niley?" She looked at the sky. "I don't know," she said. "But I think I'm something that's not supposed to be alone." Daniel hugged her tight. They sat together on the canyon's edge for a long time. As the sun set, a quiet breeze blew past them. And in that breeze, Niley heard a voice, soft, faint, like a whisper from the stars. "My little star, live." She looked up. "I heard her," she said. "Mama's not gone." Daniel didn't argue. Maybe she was right. Maybe some part of Kelra lived on inside her daughter. In the days that followed, Daniel and Niley left the forest behind. They moved far, to a place no scanner could find. A place where flowers grew and machines didn't reach. Niley learned to control her power. Little by little, she still played with her doll. And sometimes she sang the lullaby. At night, Daniel would sit by the fire, watching the stars. He once thought he was a lost man, but now he knew better. He wasn't just a savior, he was a father. And across the galaxy, whispers spread about a child made of starlight, and the human who stood by her when the world wanted to take her away. The end.